Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a brand new Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, ENAMORUS Incarnate form. ENAMORUS Incarnate is a Fairy and Flying type Pokemon with the moveset of Fairy Wind, Fly, and Dazzling Gleam. So Fairy Wind and Fly, it's going to have incredibly quick pacing, and ENAMORUS Incarnate has a massive attack stat. It has the 18th highest attack stat of any eligible Pokemon in the entire Ultra League. Of course, Ultra League is not currently in rotation, so to test it out, I did some practice battles with members of my Discord. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out ENAMORUS Incarnate in the Ultra League. Hopping to the first match, picking up a very tough lead, Annihilate into Charizard. I save switch into the Gliscor, but before I'm able to fire off the Night Slash, they will go for the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw will get some chip damage, and now I see why they wanted chip damage as they send in Swampert. Swampert, of course, not able to pick up a one-hit KO with a Hydro Cannon, so that chip damage will be very valuable for the opponent. The opponent is going to overfarm and play to the charge attack priority, as Hydro Cannon will pick up the knockout onto the Gliscor. I'm going to send in the Annihilate. I want to try and get rid of the Swampert as soon as I possibly can. Swampert is going to fire off the Hydro Cannon. I tank that, no problem. I'm farming up to the Shadow Ball, but unfortunately, I do end up losing charge attack priority. I believe that is a CMP tie that is actually IV dependent. I'm going to be firing off the Shadow Ball, trying to go for a slight undercharge, but it is still going to be enough to knock out, and now I have to try and sweep with the newest Pokemon in Pokemon Go, ENAMORUS Incarnate form. As I mentioned, this thing is all attack. It has a truly outrageous attack stat. I'm able to grab the final shield from the Charizard. I commit the shield, but I get baited with the Dragon Claw. I'm continuing to farm up with an ENAMORUS. Opponent tries for a catch in the back. It's Annihilate, and I'm going to massively overfarm and go for the Dazzling Gleam. This will easily pick up the one-hit KO onto Annihilate. Back in comes the Charizard. ENAMORUS wins charge attack priority. This is a fly onto the Charizard. It's only neutral damage, but it still picks up the knockout. This thing's attack stat is absolutely nuts. Picking up a very tough lead in the next match, leading that Annihilate into Clefable. I save switch into the Shadow Gliscor. Opponent is going to stay in here and fire off the Meteor Mash. Meteor Mash is what you typically want to go for, as you do need 2 charge attacks in this matchup. Opponent now going to send in their own Annihilate. I fire off the Earthquake, that connects, and I'm going to be able to make it to a Night Slash as well. So it looks like the opponent is just fully sacrificing the Annihilate to potentially get some farm on their final Pokemon. They're thinking about it. Do they send in Clefable? Clefable doesn't have a lot of fast attack pressure. No, they're going to send in Skeledirge. I farm up, and this is where I test my opponent. How well were they counting? Going for the Night Slash. They were counting perfectly. They do not shield. I send in Annihilate, and I'm in an incredibly tough position. I have to try and call a bait. It is the Disarming Voice bait. That's big. And then I have to try and go for a catch. But ENAMORUS is all attack. It can't take a hit. Disarming Voice does half my health, but the opponent switches into Clefable. And with that switch, maybe there's a chance. I fire off the Fly connects, dealing some very nice damage to the bulky XL Clefable. Clefable is going to start spamming out these Meteor Mashes. I do see a win con, and it involves double shielding and going for a Fairy Wind farm down. If I can have 2 flies on the ENAMORUS, I think I can make it to a Shadow Ball on my Annihilate. I believe I'm 2 off from the Shadow Ball. In comes the Skeledirge. I'm firing off the Fly. I know I will win charge attack priority, so I'm going to switch, throw 2. Oh, but I'm just short. It all comes down to this. Do they know that this isn't a Shadow Ball? They do not. Opponent commits the shield, and that's going to be a win, as I have the charge attack loaded on ENAMORUS, and ENAMORUS is going to win charge attack priority versus basically anything you could ever encounter in the meta. Fly picks up the knockout, and we take the win. Moving into the next match, we see a tough lead, Annihilate into Gliscor. I save switch into my own Gliscor. Opponent is going to send out an XL Lantern. So I'm extremely happy to bait this out, as this would completely destroy the poor ENAMORUS in the back. I'm going to massively overfarm and go for a bait. Even if my opponent calls this, I can still make it to the Earthquake. The opponent commits the shield. I'm going to overfarm and play to charge attack priority. And now my opponent is in an awkward spot where they're unable to overfarm because they're locked into throwing this move. So I'm just going to let this go. This works out great for me. My opponent is going to fight back though. They go for an undercharge and a farm down. I send in Annihilate. Annihilate, farming up energy. My opponent does have enough for a Thunderbolt. I'm going to shield, because I can use this as an opportunity to get a very big energy advantage and Ice Punch the Gliscor. I'm going to farm up, go for the Shadow Ball on charge attack priority, and honestly, I haven't played against a lot of XL Lanterns. I'm hoping it will KO, and it does. In comes the Gliscor into the loaded Ice Punch. This will do a lot of damage. This is double super effective. Ice Punch connects. In comes ENAMORUS, and it's Registeel in the back. Oh, man. ENAMORUS, it honestly has some pretty nice charge attacks, but it is completely helpless against steel types. As you see here against Registeel, there's just nothing I can do. I just have to let this go and try and win this game against all odds with the Annihilate. But that's definitely a bit of, I would say, a detracting point here when it comes to ENAMORUS. Thing has a massive attack stat, so if you can land charge attacks, it just does so much damage. But against steel types, it is completely walled, and with that massive attack stat, it does not have a lot of HP or defense. The Ice Punch doesn't quite KO. In comes the Gliscor, but I have another Ice Punch ready for it. That will pick up the knockout. All that's left is the 1 HP Reggie, which does not have a charge attack loaded. Tough lead in the next match as I lead Annihilate into Cresselia. This line is very soft to a Cresselia lead. I'm going to stay in the matchup with Annihilate and go for a bait, hoping for the shield, but the opponent reads me like a book, things going from bad to worse. I decide to make a play, call a bait, and I do call the Grass Knot correctly. That is quite big. I'm farming up, going for the Shadow Ball, and the Shadow Ball is going to do quite a lot of damage, hoping my opponent tries to call it again, but they do not fall for it. They will commit the shield. At this point, they're just going to go for a Grass Knot and a farm down, so I'm not going to shield. I'm instead just going to pivot into the Gliscor. Unfortunately, the game didn't register my switch right away, so I threw an extra counter. Definitely not ideal, as I wanted to switch slightly sooner. The Future Sight is going to connect. I continue to farm. Opponent tries for a Night Slash catch onto Annihilate, but now I get to connect with this Shadow Earthquake, and that will do so much damage. The Annihilate makes it to a last-second charge move, and I have a tough call to make. I decide to shield, because being able to land Night Slashes onto Cresselia should be something that is very helpful for me. My opponent, they're going to send in the Cresselia. I'm farming up, and it looks like that was charge attack priority. So I'm firing off the Night Slash. The Night Slash is going to connect. I'm just going to let this go and trust in ENAMORUS. ENAMORUS with a shield. Let's see what it can do. ENAMORUS farming up in the back. It's a Shadow Ampharos, and it all goes wrong. There's one win con, going for the Dazzling Gleam. Do they respect the damage? They do not. Get that Ampharos out of here. And now it's a race to fast attacks. Psycho Cut versus Fairy Wind. And this game is going to end in a tie. Could have definitely been a loss, but the opponent did not respect the damage from Dazzling Gleam. Amazing lead in the next match. Annihilate into the Shadow Alolan Sandslash. The opponent is going to save switch into a Dragon Breath Giratina, and I respond with ENAMORUS. But look how glassy this Pokemon is. That Shadow Sneak does so much damage. I'm firing off the Dazzling Gleam. Opponent is going to commit the shield, and I'm realizing that I'm going to have to bait if I actually want to win the 2-shield here. My opponent can now just go straight Dragon Claw, which of course is cheaper than a Shadow Sneak. I'm farming up, and I'm going for the Fly Bait. If they call this, I'm in complete shambles. The Fly Bait does get shielded. That's absolutely massive. I'm going to be shielding back, and I just have to make it to the Dazzling Gleam. Opponent's clock is up. They can switch, but they do not. They try and commit. I make the Dazzling Gleam, and I am barely able to win the 2-shield. In comes the Sandslash. I send in Annihilate. In the back, it's Jellicent, and this is honestly another problem Pokemon for this team. ENAMORUS is a bit difficult to team build around. I'm now going to send in the Gliscor. Opponent is at the back-to-back Surfs. Surf number 1 is going to connect, but I can fire off the Night Slash and win charge attack priority to deny my opponent's second move. And now, back in comes the Sandslash. Sandslash farming up so much energy here. My opponent's counts are perfect, and this game is honestly looking losable. They have a lot of energy on the Sandslash. I'm going to have to play this perfectly to win this game. I'm farming up. I go for the Ice Punch, and then I realize I have lost. This Ice Punch does not knock out, and they have back-to-back Ice Punches here. Honestly, they probably could have knocked out with a Drill Run. Ice Punch there, yeah, it looks like a Drill Run would have KO'd, but man, just beautiful gameplay there from my opponent, really taking advantage of the opportunity, never having switch advantage, but leveraging opportunities consistently to gain an energy advantage and take the win. Moving into the next match, leading Annihilate into Tentacruel. I'm farming up, and I'm firing off the Shadow Ball on charge attack priority to the Scald. The Shadow Ball is going to be no-shielded by my opponent. My opponent is going to be firing off the Scald, and I'm going to no-shield this as well. The Scald We don't see whether it debuffs because I end up switching out. My opponent tries for a Night Slash catch onto Guzzlord. Guzzlord is going to be met with the Earthquake. Earthquake is going to be shielded up by my opponent. My opponent will have to go for a Brutal Swing or a Crunch if they want to pick up the knockout here. Dragon Claw, I can survive and make the Earthquake, and they go for the Dragon Claw. That's very nice. I'm firing off the Earthquake as soon as I get it. I just want this damage. This damage will be very useful. Opponent is going to get the farm down, and now I can send in ENAMORUS to absorb the energy. Dragon Claw, Brutal Swing, it's not going to matter, but they're running Sludge Bomb. You've got to be kidding me, man. They have Sludge Bomb, they have Greedent in the back, and this is... Actually, maybe there's still a chance. If they didn't have Sludge Bomb, this game is just a win. But because they have Sludge Bomb, it is now going to be so difficult to try and win. I shield at the last second, and it is going to be the Crunch. I'm firing off this Ice Punch on charge attack priority. This does not knock out, but it will get the opponent low, so they are going to commit the final shield. This will be very, very tough. I shield. They body slam bait. This means they're going to be able to outpace me here, make it to the Crunch, and pick up the knockout. I'm sending in the ENAMORUS as it's my final Pokemon left. In comes the Tentacruel. I make the Fly. Fly will pick up the knockout. The question is, can I make it to another Fly or KO with Fairy Winds? It's going to be a race here. The Greedent able to hang on with a fraction of HP left. Make the Body Slam and take the win. Oh, goodness, what a close one. Tough lead in the next match, Annihilate into Shadow Charizard. Same game plan as the previous Charizard lead, just save switch into the Gliscor. This opponent is going to build up to the Blast Burn, so right before they get there, I will go for the Night Slash. Opponent is going to let that through. They try and go for charge attack priority. I'm going to go for the extra and respect the potential Blast Burn. It is going to be the Blast Burn. I'm going to go for the Night Slash before they're able to make it to Blast Burn number 2. My opponent, however, can shield and make it to the Blast Burn, and that puts me in a difficult position. I decide, you know what, I'm just going to let this go and instead go for farm on ENAMORUS. In comes ENAMORUS. Looks like I will get the farm down. Opponent is going to send in Shadow Staraptor. Look at the spice. Oh my goodness. I'm firing off the Fly. The Fly will be shielded by the opponent. ENAMORUS wins charge attack priority over a Shadow Staraptor, and Fly picks up the one-hit KO. The damage output from this thing is just hilarious. In the back, it's a Shadow Zapdos, and this is looking dire. If my opponent catches, I just lose. So I'm going to have to build up, wait just a split second, and they do not go for the catch. I get the Dazzling Gleam. That's going to be goodbye to the Shadow Zapdos. All that's left is the Charizard. They leave with the charge attack, but they only had 4 wing attacks when they switched out. +1, that's only 5. That's not enough for the Blast Burn, and we take the win. Moving into the next match, we see a tough lead, Annihilate into Giratina. I'm going to farm up and try and catch a Shadow Sneak onto my Gliscor. Unfortunately, I am unsuccessful in that catch attempt. They're going to be firing off the Dragon Claw now to get a little bit of damage, and they're going to send in Swampert. Swampert will easily be able to pick up a knockout, but my opponent does not actually decide to fire off the Hydra first. They want residual energy. I bait with the Night Slash. It doesn't get the shield, but what it does get is the boost. And now this is a boosted Night Slash. Opponent is going to commit the shield. They have quite a lot of energy on that Swampert. And Swampert, I just don't really see a point in shielding, so I'm going to let that go and send in Annihilate. Annihilate winning charge attack priority. That is absolutely massive. Shadow Ball will pick up the knockout. Is it the Giratina, or is it the final Pokemon that they decide to send in here? They're thinking about it, and it's going to be a Charizard. I would definitely prefer if it was the Shadow Charizard, as I could basically one-shot with a Fly, but a Fly is not going to one-shot the normal. As you see, look at that damage. That damage is crazy. At this point, I think I have to try and make a call to win the game. I call the bait. It's the Blast Burn. And that's game over. I no longer can win this matchup, unfortunately. I'm going to shield as my opponent goes for the Dragon Claw, but they can send in the Giratina, and Giratina just wins this game. Maybe if I shielded, I could have potentially pulled off a win, but I really thought that in order to gain an advantage, I was going to have to try and call a bait, because when dealing with a Pokemon this frail, it feels like it'd be super comfortable to bait, but my opponent full sends, and they take the win. Hopping to the final match, we've got a pretty big core breaker on the lead as I lead Annihilate into Tapu Fini. It is the shiny Tapu Fini as well. That's definitely got to be one of the best shinies in the game. I'm going to stay in this matchup, fire off the Shadow Ball. The Shadow Ball will be shielded up by my opponent. I'm going to call the bait, as most like to go for the Surf in this matchup, and they will go for the Surf. I'm farming up. Opponent is going to send in a Skeletor save switch, but I can just go for a Shadow Ball here. Shadow Ball is going to do monster damage. In comes the Gliscor. Gliscor is just going to go for the no shield and the farm down here. Looking to exit with energy, because the nice thing is the energy will threaten the Tapu into firing off its energy and go for the Surf. They can throw one Water Gun and then go for the Earthquake here. They are going to send in the Tapu, and that's exactly what they do. Fire off the Surf just before I make it to the Earthquake. The Surf will pick up the knockout, and it's ENAMORUS time. I need ENAMORUS to clutch this game for me in a big way. Tapu Fini is going to fire off the Surf. I'm going to use the shield. As we know, ENAMORUS, it's all attack. It can't take a hit whatsoever. ENAMORUS farming up to the back-to-back flies. This way, I exit with energy. The fly will connect in the back. It's a Shadow Zapdos, and this is tough. I have to bait to win this game. I bait with the fly. Do they shield? They do. Come on, ENAMORUS. And it looks like ENAMORUS is going to be able to withstand these fast moves from that Zapdos and make it to the Dazzling Gleam. And this is going to be one sad Zapdos get absolutely one-shot. And that is a good game. All in all, I had a lot of fun getting to try out ENAMORUS Incarnate form. Unfortunately, with the fact that the Elite raids are only across a couple hours, it's not possible to get enough XLs to max one for Master League. Otherwise, I would have tried it out in Masters. But it was very fun in Ultra. It's definitely not a Metamon by any means. It's definitely on the spicy side of things. But in the future, when it gets its legacy move, Springtide Storm, which I imagine, like the other signature moves for the Genies, will be an Icy Wind clone, but this time Fairy type, I think it could see some very legitimate play. It's absurdly attack weighted. It cannot take a hit at all, but that kind of Pokemon would benefit from a debuffing move like Icy Wind quite a bit. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.